On this episode of the InsurTech Geek podcast, we're talking about why identifying the right pain points is key to success with artificial intelligence with Preetha Sekharan from Unum. The InsurTech Geek podcast is all about technology that's transforming and disrupting the insurance world. We'll be interviewing guests and doing deep dives into specific tech we see changing the industry. We're taking you on a journey through insurance tech, so enjoy the ride and geek out. Terra, this week's episode sponsor, is revolutionizing the world of workers' compensation claims and policy management. Terra's cutting-edge platform empowers insurers with comprehensive benchmarking tools, robust management systems, and an integrated ancillary services marketplace. Discover how Terra is driving innovation and efficiency in workers' comp at terra.insure. That's terra.insure. And we are back with another great episode with me, my main man, Mr. Rob Galbraith. Rob, how's it going?
It's going, James. It's going. It's hard to believe close to the end of March. First quarter already crazy. Over. Yeah. So.
You know, the days are long, but the years are short. And we just keep plowing through. It's a few days from being done with winter, although here in Texas, it's been done with winter for about a month. And we're already into hot, dry, windy right now, super windy weather. And with us from, I believe Atlanta. Is that right, Preetha?
I am in Chattanooga today, but yes, from Atlanta.
Yeah, from Atlanta. Preetha from Unum. Preetha Sekharan. Preetha, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Great. And thanks for joining us. You are in Chattanooga at the office there today, but you're from Atlanta. Also in the South, nice warm weather, hot, muggy, humid summers, and, and very, very minimal winters. That's what we like.
I think we've not made our minds up yet. We are having pockets of cold weather.
Yeah, that's the South. That's the South for sure. That's the way it works. So it's good to have you on. Glad to have you on board. And we're gonna chit chat about AI. We're gonna chat about technology. But before we do any of that, we're gonna talk about you. I always like talking about people's backgrounds and where they're from. We'll just start with something really simple. Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in India. Moved to the US about 20 years ago and have been here ever since.
Yeah, you came. You went to Duke for your MBA. Is that why you came to the United States? Right. Was for your MBA?
Yes. I mean, I was on and off, coming here for work, but then decided to take a little bit of hiatus from working and joined Duke, and then kind of moved here.
You're a particularly effective. I always like this combination of a bachelor's in engineering, a master's in business administration. I think that's a killer combo to have the engineering background and the business master's. You went to National Institute of Technology, Rockella. You got a degree in electrical engineering, and then you went to Duke for an MBA. Great business school, great school. I'm assuming you enjoyed your time there at Duke.
Yes, definitely. I think for me, what got me to Duke was, I mean, I love technology, but I love technology for what it can do, and so that education really kind of helped me understand, everything that we do in technology. How does it impact, right? And how does it impact business at large?
Awesome. And then, did you jump straight into working? So were you at Infosys before that, and then you went to McKinsey after grad school?
That's right. So I have my education, as you mentioned, was in engineering. So I'm an engineer at heart, and then the experience at Infosys just gave me a good breadth of technology. So I'm not afraid of technology at all. And then McKinsey, gave me like a breadth of experience from a business strategy, operations, performance transformation, and so on.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you were actually at a really, I got into the outsourced software development business in 2001. You were at Infosys, which is one of the largest outsourcing companies, from 97 to 06, which means you got to deal with dot-com boom,
Yes,
Y2K migrations, all the old legacy on-prem ERP Y2K work, right? Like you
yes,
were involved in all that?
yes, yes. So it has been a journey of constant learning. Just before it started with Y2K, moved to Java, object oriented programming language. Then it was definitely the internet boom and the businesses, right, that started in that phase. ERP integration. So when I said I have a good breadth, I've covered a broad spectrum of technologies and how they apply.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. I just appreciate you're from the same vintage years that I'm from, where we were working on like pre.NET, old school Java that was just impossible to compile, and just it was just a very different world. We had to work on very different projects. After after your time there, you actually went to McKinsey as an engagement manager for 3 years, and then to Booz and Company, and then to you ended up at Unum after that. So like what led, because you dealt with leading a public exchange healthcare reform program with Booz, and you did some interesting things with insurance organizations at McKinsey. Was your time in management consulting with McKinsey and Booz, was that kind of where you got your introduction to insurance, and then you decided to go work for an insurance company?
Yes, yes. So that was, I had not, I think when I was at Infosys, my area of focus was a lot around retail, CPG, logistics. That was my industry of focus. And then insurance, I got exposed to insurance through my management consulting experience. And it's a very, very interesting industry, right? It's not something you can touch and feel. It's not everyday business that you're very familiar with. So there is a lot of opaqueness in the industry and abstract concepts and things, which makes it very, 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 very interesting. So if you are a systems thinker, this is a space that you would thrive in. It's very abstract. It is complex, and it's data intensive. So it is nothing but data and AI on wheels.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're in an industry that literally its product is information.
Yes, yes,
Obviously it's covering risk, but the end work product is documents, contracts,
totally.
and yeah, so it's a data nerd's dream. Uh, you generate, store, process exabytes of data. Your end work product is data. The input is data. It's a unique thing, it's a really unique thing.
Yeah,
Tell me,
I mean,
like,
if you think about it, actuarials, right? Like the actuaries, they are the your version one of data scientist. So, like, I would love to believe that insurance gave birth to data science.
I've actually never thought of it that way, but you're totally right. I mean, they were data scientists before data scientists were called data scientists.
That is right.
Wow, that's neat. So, um, talk to me about like why you chose to go work for an insurance company. Did you just like fall in love with it? Like I started working for insurance through a client engagement at my outsourcing firm that I started, right? And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. They need tons of help. There's a great opportunity here, and that's what caused me to dive deep. What was it that caused you to dive so deep that you left some of the largest consulting firms in the world and went to work for Unum?
Yeah, I think I joined consulting with the intent of like understanding different industry. I had not made up my mind where I wanted to kind of specialize in. But as I got more exposed to healthcare payers and the space of healthcare insurance is as complex as it gets. And I am a person that is driven by the business. There are three things that matter to me in my career. One is what impact am I driving. Two, am I learning new things? And three, what is the value that I am delivering in as an individual? And insurance, like I said, is a space that is very complex, and you need that systems thinking. So it's kind of in my sweet spot. Insurance is also an industry which is highly regulated, pretty risk averse, and so especially if you think about a company like Unum, we have been around for a while, and companies that have been around for a while, there is quite a lot of legacy and opportunities to really modernize and reimagine what this industry could be. So the potential for business impact is huge. So those were the two things that really drove me. And when I joined Unum, they were looking for someone to really drive digital strategy for the organization, and that brought in like my past experience with technology and my understanding of business and business strategy and operations all together. So it was something that I could leverage, the ikigai, when, right, like if you're doing what you love to do and it is something that is of value and you're driving business impact, that is a sweet spot you should look for, and Unum provided all three for me.
Nice. And today, what does Unum mainly make their money doing, and then what do you do for it?
So the main business is insurance. We do have services and solutions as well, which are kind of adjacent to our insurance business. We are in the space of life and disability. So if this anyone who has gone on a maternity leave, you most likely have used a short-term disability product, and hopefully from us. But life and disability, we also sell dental and vision products, and voluntary products. So we sell it through employers, through brokers and employers, and we have products where the ultimate policyholder is the employee, and that's our supplemental health and voluntary products.
Nice. Very nice. And tell about yourself and the role that you play.
So I lead the digital strategy incubation team. So think of that as an innovation team that is looking at both what are some of the emerging technologies that is happening outside of our four walls, and what of those applies to us, and can we experiment and try those out, and see how they can help solve problems for us. So that we look outside and we look inside. We look at interesting business problems that require creative solutions, and so that's the incubation function. I also have responsibility for applied AI, so using AI, Gen AI, to solve problems. And so designing and implementing and deploying AI products and solutions for the business.
What does a typical day for you look like? I mean, are you sitting in a laboratory with, cooking things up? Are you at a desk and you're working with other people and you're watching them, adjudicate claims and underwrite policies? I mean, what does an average day for an innovator look like?
Yeah, I think so. It's a balance uh, of strategy and execution. It's a balance of hands-on problem solving with really thinking about the bigger picture, where there are opportunities that we should go after, where is the team stuck, right? So I do manage a big team, and so really looking at, is work moving at the pace that it needs to? Are there roadblocks that the teams are encountering? What are the roadblocks I need to kind of take out? But I really manage my day, optimize it for my energy levels. So I'm a morning person, so my mornings are really in deep work, and my afternoons are probably in a lot of meetings and meeting stakeholders and meeting team members and so on.
Yeah, Preetha, I love the managing. I'm a big proponent of that as well. It took me years to figure that out. I'm also a morning person. I try to do my heavy lifting in the mornings, and then more routine stuff kind of in the afternoons and evenings. So I love that. So one of the things I previously led innovation teams and trying. There's so many ideas out there, and there's so many pain points out there, right? And so as if you are in any type of innovation function, I think of it as being you have this kind of a unique mix of being in a leadership role in terms of like, helping, like you said, being at the forefront of technology, right? And looking outside, right? And then trying to figure out, okay, how can we apply that, or how can we make use of that, or whatnot. At the same time, you also are kind of, and you relying on that support, right, to other lines of business that are they're making profit or loss, right? The product managers, et cetera. So how do you find the right problems to examine versus like working on each areas? I call them pet projects, that maybe is, too derogatory or whatnot, right? But I feel like that's, and really making sure you've got a strategic focus that I talk about this concept between new and novel. Like, there might be something new, but that could be, hey, there's a better software package, we're using software from 30 years ago, but there's actually nothing really unknown about it. Like, it's fairly straightforward. It's kind of, you just need to have the right ROI and kind of rack it and stack in your, where's that rank with all your other portfolio projects? Whereas novel, it's like, we've got unknown questions. We don't know, right? And so there needs to be some exploratory, and that sounds kind of where you're at, and particularly just the incubation team and then the applied AI part. So yeah, just kind of maybe you can talk us through, like, how do you decide that sweet spot of, the pain points that you're looking to address?
Yeah, and I think I'll give a very consulting like answer. It depends. It depends on what stage of maturity you are. So, for example, I'll probably explain how we picked the right use case when we initially started doing, some of the AI work almost 5, 6 years ago. And that has changed and it has evolved as our own maturity in that space has kind of increased. So for me, the most important, like I've said, I'm very, very passionate about not doing technology just for the sake of technology. I think there are learnings involved whenever you try out some new technology, but you it has to be in the context of a problem that you're trying to solve for business. And so when we were in very early stages of, you know, looking at whether an emerging technology, emerging for Unum, like AI, how do we kind of pick a use case? The important thing for us to consider was that AI was new to Unum, uh, which means you had a lot of skeptics and people thinking this is just the next shiny object. So there was a little bit of proving that we had to do, which basically means we we had to kind of pick a use case that was big enough. It was a burning platform so that it would get the right visibility, but it was not so complex or unknown and driven with uncertainty that there was a chance of failure. Right? We wanted this to be successful, but we wanted it to be big enough as well so that people would see that as a flagship use case, and that would drive momentum of the use of these technology for other use cases. So that really was the criteria, and we kind of picked an area in the claims space which was a little bit of a burning platform for us as a company, and proved with a very test and learn kind of an approach that we took, that the solution is feasible and it can drive business impact. That created a ripple effect of people taking notice, people starting to believe that this technology could be hugely impactful for us as a business, and that drove a lot of other use cases that came our way. So it was very, very critical what use case we picked as our first use case for AI. Having said that, like, 4 years hence, when Gen AI kind of hit the market, we had to pick up some small use cases which to just try out the technology, right? So that we knew the downfalls, the pitfalls, what works, what doesn't work, what use cases should we kind of be using it, should we think about it more in an autonomous way or human augmentation way. So there was a lot of things that we had to figure out, and so at that stage we picked some use cases which was still adding value to business but small, so that we could actually do some trial and error. So like I said, I think long story short, it depends on where you are in your evolution, in within the organization. And then right now we are at a stage where we are looking at it as a balanced portfolio of some small stuff, some big stuff, some things that are delivering value in the shorter term that keeps the energy going, and then some that are a lot more transformative and maybe takes a medium term horizon from a value realization perspective.
That's awesome. That kind of brings up, you touched on it, but trust in AI, like trust that it's actually accurate, and even trust that you understand what it's doing, that we can actually even explain what it's doing. Cause like that's something that's come up in with Gen AI, like the machine learning models that you probably implemented, that we implemented machine learning models for claim severity prediction 5 years ago.
Yep.
Right. So we started, like, that was really starting to hit in 2018, 2019. So that we got on board there. That was fairly easy to understand and explain. Like, it was, you could identify and you could plot and chart, you could show correlation on causality. And, you're using an ML model to predict reserves and, severity, treatment recommendations. I mean, there's a lot you can do with claims with AI, right?
Yep. Yep.
Of course, there's a lot you can do with underwriting too. You can predict, negative outcomes there, but with a claim, there's really a lot you can do. And so, I was just trying to figure out, like, with generative AI, large language models like ChatGPT, Claude AI, Copilot, which is ChatGPT, they're a little bit of a black box. Like, we can't fully explain everything they do. We can retrain the models and influence the outcome, right? But it's a unique thing, and so there's definitely some trust building. It also doesn't help that some of the early versions of generative AI were released too early and delivered erroneous results and got creative, because that's what LLMs do, is they can get creative. So, like, how do you deal with that? Trust barriers, people trusting it, being able to explain how to arrive at outcomes.
It's interesting you said it was easy with the more traditional ML, because
It wasn't me.
what we found was, because it was so new, right? And people had this notion of, I don't know if it works, it just seems too true, too good to be true. So there was a lot of skepticism when we initially kind of rolled out even ML. And I strongly believe trust is, you earn it, right? So you can't, there's no, you can't, and you can't be entitled on that front. So the approach that we took was really kind of involving some of the users of the system be part of co-creating the system with us, so that, like, they started seeing they were involved in the sausage making, to say, as an example, that they they s- because they were so closely involved in it, they started believing, and then they became the change champions for the rest of the organization. So they were the ones who were, like, they were thinking about these models as their buddies, and they started seeing that a lot of times, the specialists got it wrong, but the AI models got it right. And so that's how we kind of build the trust. With Gen AI, I think it has worked. It's kind of slightly different. My experience has been slightly different, because with Chat GPT now everybody has access to those tools, and so there is, I almost feel like, from a trust perspective, while earlier I was really trying to solve for how do I get people to adopt it and trust that it is right, I now have to solve for, are people overtly relying on this, right? Are they not using their critical thinking and their judgment into this? So it's the pendulum has swung to the other side with Gen AI for us, uh, which is very, very interesting. The second thing that we have also done is, how do you think about governance and risk, and how do you make those robust? Because that is also part of that entire trust building. It's not, trust is with, there are different stakeholders, and you have your end users of what you're kind of creating, and how do you build trust with them. But then how do you also build trust with folks that are wearing the risk hat in the organization, and making sure they are comfortable with how it is being developed, and how, what the models are kind of giving as an output.
Yeah, that's a good step by step. I appreciate that. Thank you. Rob?
Yeah, Preetha, just a quick comment. I do think that in regards to Gen AI, like Chat GPT, I always felt like was somewhat unique. There's probably a parallel I'm not thinking about in terms of top executives could play around with it, right? On their own, like in a way that
Yeah.
so many other technologies, it was
Yeah.
more abstract and you'd have to explain it to them, but they wouldn't really get it. And so that skepticism was kind of in there, right? So I just felt like it was somewhat unique. I mean, I'm sure like GPS technology that way, right? Boom, one day Google Maps comes out and you get to play with it, and kind of you understand this world of GPS. And if you apply it in different areas, right, it's a little easier to conceptualize because you've personally had some experience playing around with it, I guess. So anyway, with that, I'm thinking about obviously, you've kind of touched around this idea of you have to work with cross-functional teams, right? You've got to work with senior leaders. You've got to work, I'm sure, with IT. You've got to work with vendors. You've got to work with the business units. You probably some legal and regulatory folks, whatever. So what are some of the ways that you found that are most effective to kind of align different stakeholders and that maybe made the difference between successful AI implementation or not? And I'm kind of asking this question as somebody that has overseen innovation teams that have been left with a lot of misfit toys of like, hey, it's not fully implementable, but if I were to pull the plug, then some business user somewhere is going to scream that, their lives became a lot harder. So just kind of curious how you keep everybody aligned and moving forward.
Yeah, I think you go fast. I mean, we tend to think that you can go fast if you're all alone, but I think if you look at how far you go and how far you need to go, you probably need to bring a lot of folks along in that journey. And so for me, especially as I think about when we started this journey, even the AI regulations were not were not non-existent, right? But we and so it's a paradox to think innovation and governance kind of hand in hand. But we are the best partners in the company, and that is because we had to kind of make sure that the brake systems are so good that it allows us to go fast, right? So it's not, they don't slow us down. I think if we are confident about these brakes being really, these guardrails being really robust, it gives us the confidence that we can move much faster. So that, like, the mindset of thinking, how we think about risk and how we think about the governance of those risks and the controls, uh, that was important. And in the absence of any guidance from a regulatory standpoint, we had to kind of make sure we brought in our risk partners along with us through the journey. So the first set of projects that we did, we were they would be with us at different milestones, and we were constantly kind of communicating with them and bringing them along with us in that journey. The second stakeholder, I think I kind of alluded to earlier, was our end users, right? So if this is a tool that is going to be used by our claims specialist, how can we have a set of those folks be part of the co-creation? And this is not us doing something on the side. And so they were, very much um, helping us really making these models better, right? So they were invested from that standpoint, and that helped them be the change champions kind of going forward. So it has been, and then finally, does everyone have a skin in the game, right? So just aligning all our incentives towards the success of some of these projects, that was very, very important as well.
That's great. So let's finish with this. Let's just talk about the future. I feel like we're living in the future because, yeah, I mean, I use Claude AI, Copilot, ChatGPT, machine learning models like every day, and I feel like a wizard. I'm like, this can't be real. It's so good. So I already feel like we're living in the future. But like, tell me what you think is coming next for insurance, because we're already using generative AI for generating communications to clients, running chat agents, analyzing policies and certificates of insurance, and reading endorsements. We're using machine learning models for predicting claim outcomes and working in underwriting. Like, we're using it really across a lot of insurance organizations. So it's pretty heavily deployed at some level right now. And people ask me all the time what I think is next, and sometimes I go, I don't know. Like, it's a wild world. I think maybe extreme automation like levels of automation we haven't even thought about, because we're going to be able to build APIs and agentic AI,
Yeah.
basically AI powered agents that can automate
Yep.
a lot of tasks. I mean, it's like RPA on steroids. So I feel like rampant automation is next, but I don't know like what fundamental tools are going to even accelerate that more, other than vastly better LLMs and machine learning models. So I'm curious as to your thought on that. Like, what's next?
Yeah, I think so. This is my perspective that if you look at all our AI implementations to date, right? We've kind of tried to fit in. We have tried to embed that in our existing flows, and I feel there is power now to think. If I were an AI native company, how would all this kind of work? And I think that's probably going to be the next horizon of where we take these technologies. It's going to be in how you apply them, right? Like I'm kind of thinking, if I think about it from a customer experience standpoint, we've always talked about omni-channel, but we have not, like, you now have the power to have an omni-channel backbone that serves all forms of interactions with customers in a extremely hyper personalized way. I do not think that problem has been solved that way. We've tried to kind of fit it into our existing mental models and our existing architectures, and the power really is in rethinking what happens. Like, even if you think about applications that our folks use today, they were all built with an interface where humans had to talk with machines in a way that machines understood. And now, if machines can understand how humans talk and interact, does it change what those applications mean for us, right? So I really do believe that the next horizon, I mean, these technologies are going to kind of be better, like you with agentic and all that it's just going to open up a lot more avenues for us. But the creativity is probably going to come in how you apply them and how you reimagine. I mean, we get anchored a lot on what we have today, but if that anchor does not exist, how would you think about insurance? I mean, that's where the next horizon is really going to be.
Mm, that's deep. Rob, you want to close us out? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, Preetha, I love it because so I often describe something I call the gate agent problem, right, to illustrate exactly what you're talking about, which is, if you've ever been at the airport, right, and you want to know, did I get that upgrade? Like, is the flight delayed or whatever? And you ask the agent, if you ever peek behind the counter, most of the time they're still using green screens from the 1980s, right? And so
Yes.
if you were to ask that gate agent, hey, I want to make your life easier, what can I do? The idea of the system is dictating their process, and so it's very difficult for people to separate that. And
Yep.
so they probably would tell you, boy, if you could add this extra transaction code, right, or if I could make this 3 screens into 2 screens, or if I hit a tab, I want it to go to this field instead of that. And it's like, no, I want to completely, like, none of those limitations exist. So could I create a brand new system with drop downs, it's a web interface to make anybody, like any one of us could get behind that counter and be halfway competent without any training whatsoever, just by following, right, the interface. We buy airline tickets today. Why could we not see if we got that upgrade or what the flight status is, whatever, right? So if you describe it to them, like, they would have a hard time imagining outside of the current process, right, or system. B, if you did describe the system of like, hey, anybody could get behind there, they might feel like their jobs are threatened. They're like, well, I actually memorized all these transaction codes. Like, nobody knows this. That's what kind of gives me a leg up, right? And so obviously we talk about AI and threatening jobs and whatnot. So I do think exactly I love what you're saying about, if we're AI native, right, what could we be, like, having that kind of blank canvas type of exercise. And it does, you mentioned engaging the end users and how important it is, and I agree, to get their buy-in, but yet at the same time, you can't be limited, right, by their thinking. So there is this delicate dance, right, of like, hey, we want everybody on board so that we can move forward, but at the same time, we don't want to be limited in our thinking to just what's the current state of things. So I appreciate
Yeah.
your response on that.
And I think I kind of go back to the 2000s when internet just like started, right? Your first version of websites was just a catalog, like a digital catalog. right? It
That's
took
right,
it took the
yeah.
next wave for it to be e-commerce. So I think we have not seen the next wave on Gen AI and agentic AI yet.
That makes complete
Oh
sense.
no, we're in the alpha wave. We're in the alpha wave. Like this is like the baby phase. Do you remember insurance conferences in like 2019 where they like we have AI enabled chat agents and it was literally like an ANSI text terminal interface where you like select 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 and like you couldn't really talk to it in free text.
Yeah.
And now we literally go into chat voice mode and talk to our AI bots like they're people and they're great. This is the alpha version.
Yep.
Like this is the basic stuff that we're gonna laugh at. We're like, oh, do you remember when that's all you could do?
Oh, that's all you were using it for.
I know that was
It
all
could
you're
have done
using
a
it
lot
for.
more. Yeah,
What a joke!
totally agree.
I mean, I'm excited. I think the future. I've always thought the future was super exciting, but now I think it's like really exciting. Because now I know there's especially like there's some really great robotics companies coming out that have embedded this in their robots too. So, I think what I see like big picture is severity coming down, frequency coming down on like the big stuff we really care about insurance, like legitimate reductions. Like we've seen it in work comp because I'm heavy in work comp. You're in life, right? You have life
Yep.
as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Like I don't think we're going to see lifespans dramatically expanded. I think we'll continue to see lifespans creeping up, but I think we can end up with less disability claims.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I think you go from just managing risk to predicting, preventing. Like you're going across the spectrum even from a risk perspective. Totally.
yeah, exactly.
If you think about it too, like maybe you have less people going from 85 to 90, right? But you have more people that are passing away in their early 50s, right? That they do make it to 85. So I could see that where you're not necessarily extending lifespans that much, but you're those
quality.
ones that are kind of cut short, right? Now you are able to, through early detection or whatever it is, right? We've all got our Apple Watches and whatnot that are managing our fitness. So yeah.
Well, you have maximum lifespan, but then you have average life expectancy, and those are two different numbers, right? So, like, I feel like we'll keep pushing average life expectancy up, but like lifespan may not move a lot.
Agree. Yeah. Well, there's people working on that too, but yeah,
there's a lot of people working on lifespan. I just, it's a weird world. It's a really weird world. I don't know if it's going to look like Terminator or WALL-E, but either way, it's going to be entertaining. So, we'll get there. Look, Preetha, great conversation. I appreciate you joining us today. And really, really happy to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And as always, Rob, good to see you.
Yep. Great conversation. Thanks for being on, Preetha. Always enjoy being your co-pilot, James.
And thank you to everyone else for tuning in today to geek out our interview with Preetha Sekharan from Unum. The InsurTech Geek podcast is all about technology that's transforming and disrupting the insurance world. And your host, James Benham, that's jamesbenham.com, with co-host Rob Galbraith at endofinsurance.com. We're taking you on a journey through insurance tech, so enjoy the ride and geek out.